Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Nasdaq. It is time for another update, and today, as promised, we will be discussing about the AI bubble and when we really expect it to pop, especially from an Elliott wave perspective, since this is what we have been focusing on here on this channel. Now, across the market we do see a lot of fear, and that has been going on for a significant amount of time now, but at this point we have actually gotten into a state of extreme fear amongst the investor sentiment. Now, that can be seen through the structure of the patterns that have been forming to the upside as well. It can be seen through the morphing of some of the structures which we have been tracking, like the Oklo chart, which has failed to hold the area of support, the Astera Labs chart, which initially managed to hold the support, formed a pretty significant movement to the upside, but only in 3 waves, and then failed. And we could go through many examples, but also we have structures where we didn't necessarily fail to continue in our trend higher, but the structures morphed into a diagonal pattern where previously we may have been able to track an impulse. Well, this isn't necessarily the case for the Nasdaq chart. It may be for the movement on the Nvidia chart that it is forming as a diagonal pattern, but here on the Nasdaq chart we have been tracking here an ending diagonal with the highest likelihood anyway. Now, this could be other case, it could still form a leading diagonal as well in some cases, and I will talk about that in a moment. But I want to talk a bit more about the general market, where yes, we are at a stage where there is a lot of fear, and there is a lot of talk about the bubble popping, the burst, and the crash that might come along with it, where many people are actually expecting a crash similar to what we have seen here from the initial wave 1 top, over 80%, or maybe at least a similar crash to what we have here after the internal 1-2 setup within the larger wave 3, and around a 50% drop. And I want to say this may not necessarily be the case. Right now, I am actually still favoring continuation higher in a pretty direct fashion in many of the charts. For example, on the Nvidia chart, we do have some cases, some scenarios which would allow even immediate reversal to the upside to new all-time highs. And for example, also on the uranium sector, the uranium charts, we do see patterns to the downside, corrections that are complete and don't really need anything to actually form a bottom. Yeah, sure, they may make an additional low, 1 or 2 local lows, but nothing too significant is really needed to have a full count within the correction and start looking for the new all-time highs. And once we actually get those patterns complete, or once we break the areas of support which allow us to track these patterns, sure, we will be looking for more bearish interpretations. The probabilities for pushing higher will decrease significantly, yeah, severely, but we are not there yet. We are in a state where there is a lot of fear. We are looking at all the videos that spread this fear as well, and yeah, sure, it may have already started, but I want to say at this point, at least from an Elliott wave perspective, there is no evidence, and when there is extreme fear, as it is right now the case, is often when the bottoms form and when we actually start the reversal and continuations to the upside in the trend. And I do want to mention, if we actually get those additional highs that we expect across these charts, I will be looking for the likelihood of having a more significant top formed. We will have a more full count within many of these structures. We will have a higher probability of having a top formed, but we will still need to break the areas of support. However, yes, of course, I would be looking to exit more of the positions than in general, yeah, maybe only holding on to the core positions that we are looking at with higher potential, even the longer time frame. And just in general, keeping and saving more cash aside, because even if we don't necessarily get the big crash that many people expect, we can still see a substantial correction, which I'm not even looking at as a bad thing, because it will have a lot of potential for us. And when you ask me, or when you might ask me, when the bubble will pop, when will the bubble burst, and when we will see the crash, well, I might say that the answer is a little bit more subjective than most people would think, because I might ask you, well, what would you need to see to consider the bubble to have popped? If you see a 15% drop, yeah, we get here to around the $21K level from this point, would you consider it to have popped? Well, most people would probably say no. Some people might say yes. Well, what if we get, for example, 30%? Yeah, we get here to around the $17K level, or from the top 30%, and we get, for example, to the $18K level. Would you consider to have popped? Well, more people might, and we might get into a pattern here where I could argue that this is just a regular correction, which is a part of the larger trend, where this could easily be something like an ABC structure, which, yeah, the 78.6% retracement, the last level of support is at around the $18K level. And we may just have a more significant correction within this pattern to the upside, but we would still be looking for additional highs. So we do have the scenario of a quite big crash. Yeah, quite a lot of potential for a crash that would lead us into the wave 4 in green, where we have a 50% drop at the first level of support, the $12K level. Or yeah, we would allow it to go all the way down, 80% drop at the $5K level. But this is just a more generic, or not even more generic, just the most important area of support that we must not break, because this is for the entire wave 3, the wave 4 correction. But within this structure to the upside, I see many ways in which we could easily extend higher. And in some cases, for example, as I was mentioning earlier, we could have this as a leading diagonal to the upside. Well, that would end up being a wave 1 up. We would then have a wave 2 down, which could be quite significant. We could be looking at a quite considerable retracement, where, yeah, even down to the $12.7K level, but we could also only get to the 38.2% retracement, even above the previous 78.6 for this AB, and that could be just a 1-2 at the 18.4K level, 38.2% retracement, and then we start a third wave to the upside, which would be expected to be even much stronger than this initial movement up, and it would be only after a 30% drop. Well, would you say that in that case the bubble would have bursted, would have popped? Well, again, some might. Would you consider that it would have popped if we have this correction over a few years, over, let's say, 5 years? Well, again, even more people would probably consider that this would be the case, because it took so long. Many people even get to forget what state of fear is currently going on in the markets. And yeah, at this point, from an Elliott wave perspective, we are still looking for higher. We haven't broken any relevant areas of support yet, not on any sort of a significant time frame, not on the Nasdaq chart, not on the Nvidia chart, not on any of the big market cap stocks, yeah, not Netflix chart, not the Meta chart. On all of them, we are actually still looking for continuation. They all still have very relevant areas of support that can allow for, yeah, continuation even within the pattern they are in right now. Even this fifth wave to the upside, for example, could extend even if it fills out the entire pattern, but there is no confirmation that it is done yet. So to answer the question, yes, I do believe we may see a significant correction once we actually form an additional high, most likely at this point, yeah. So most likely, I am looking for an additional high. Yeah, in some cases, it may look more different than in others. On this chart, we could have something like 1, 2, 3, 4th, and then a 5th. We might have still even an extension here, 1, 2, 3, where this third wave is not even done. We get here an extension in the wave 3, then we get a smaller wave 4, and then we get a 5th. But wait, this 5th wave could still even extend higher. Or, yeah, many cases, I actually don't even think it's worth going through them. On, for example, the uranium energy chart or the energy fuels chart, we may already have a bottom, and we may already be in the 5th wave to the upside, where we are looking for quite a significant movement in those cases as well. And yeah, after that, of course, we will be watching out for a more significant retracement, but we will need evidence. We will have the areas of support and the relevant signals that we will be tracking for the low or for the top being formed and for the pattern failing will be there always. But for now, it's just not the case. And with that said, we can move on here into the smaller time frame, because actually I do want to present also this idea. I was going through different ways this pattern could still extend higher. Well, from a large time frame perspective, when I'm talking about this wave 3, I don't have evidence that this would be the top. Even in other patterns, we could extend higher, which are maybe even more favorable than this being the entire wave 3, where yeah, we have here a 1, 2, 3, 4th, and the 5th, and then we get a larger wave 4 and then another 5th wave to the upside. But even in that case, the areas of support would overlap heavily, so it is not something we need to focus on too much. We will have the relevant areas and we will focus on the shorter time frame to indicate to us in which pattern we are really following through. And yeah, now we can actually go here through the smaller time frame, where yeah, we have been tracking continuation higher, and I would say that now within this interpretation where we get a 5-wave structure to the upside, the third wave is likely done, if not close to done. I am at this point still tracking a diagonal pattern overall occurring within this movement to the upside, where we have a 1, 2, 3, and then I would be looking for a wave 4 correction, in which case the area of support starts at the $23.8K level. At this point, I do have here in the very small time frame this blue scenario, this blue interpretation, where we basically have a wave A up here, and we are looking for possible extensions where we may have had here just a wave B correction, and as long as we hold the $24.6K level, we can still look for continuation higher within a wave C. Now, that would be a signal that if we break below the 24.6K, again, yeah, we did touch it a couple of times and they did prove useful, this area of support, but breaking below this level again would likely tell us that yeah, we should be prepared for a more significant retracement within the larger wave 4. And we have here a very tiny area of resistance in orange, which goes all the way up to the $25.4K level. Now, if we manage to break above that, I will be tracking if we manage to form an even larger 5-wave move to the upside for an initial wave 1 of the wave C. At this point, we may have a tiny wave 1, but it's basically structureless. It's just mostly a straight move up, and yeah, it is on too small of a time frame to get too many details, too much information out of it. So it is at this point better to zoom out and look just here for the 78.6% retracement in blue, and if that fails, we are looking for the larger wave 4 in green to unfold. And as long as those levels hold, well, I wouldn't necessarily even expect too large of a correction within this wave 4. If it probably if it extends out a lot, well, I would probably start thinking more about the larger wave A occurring in this area, where I would be looking for the wave B correction to be unfolding in that case, and that is not necessarily a problem. We have quite a significant area of support that can still allow us to look for higher prices, and sure, it may come with a drop across the markets, but we will be here to track it and to take advantage of it. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.